Oh,
Oh, hi, everybody. Welcome. We're so excited to see you today. I'm Christy Corwin with Build a Better World Foundation, and another exciting day with Natasha Trenev from Natron Probiotics. And it is the number one probiotic company in the world. And we're very lucky to have her sharing her information. Today's topic is the gut-brain axis, and this is one of the most important topics. There is so much depression and anxiety today all over the world, and even with our young people. And we want to talk a little bit about today what is the mental and physical source of the depression and anxiety, and how do we balance it? So why don't we start off? Welcome, Natasha, and let's have you share a little bit about what the mental and physical source is behind this big problem that we have today with depression and anxiety.
right. Well, just before we start, I want to be able to say that we have a natural healing force in each of us that is the greatest force in getting well. And so we can decide to get well. And our mindset has a tremendous effect on what I'm about to talk about. Just remember your second brain, which is in your gut and communicates with the first brain via the vagus nerve. I'm going to try to keep this simple because I know people try to like to throw out terminology, but we lose most people. And I want you to understand the process. You don't have to remember the terminology. So that emotional state is really produced in our gut. And the feel good chemicals are produced in our gut. And that feeling is passed up the vagus nerve to our first brain. So when you have those butterflies in the stomach, it's your second brain, which we call the enteric nervous system, responding to an emotional issue. Remember, the emotions are ruled by the enteric nervous system, which is our second brain, and sends those signals up to the first brain. That's very important to understand because we have shown that irregularities in digestion and uptake of certain important neurotransmitters is the secondary or the primary cause of depression and anxiety. Our first, expression is our perception of reality. How do we perceive reality? And the whole body works in a union. It's a joint communication, a joint cooperation, and I think we have to change our thinking that we don't treat symptoms. We give our body the tools so we can heal ourselves. So, why is depression sometimes exasperated or started inside of our, GI tract? Because number one, when we eat processed food, when we eat a high content sugar diet or simple carbohydrates, it simply selects the growth of certain microbes that will either not produce enough serotonin for us, or will produce too much, or will not produce enough dopamine, will not help to produce GABA or tryptophan. These are all these feel good chemicals. And when that's out of kilter and that's really controlled by a beneficial balance of the good bacteria versus the unfriendly bacteria, and when it's not kept in balance because of your continual consumption of foods that are aggravating this GI tract, that's what's contributing to your depression, and your perception of reality is causing the production of chemicals in your gut that's destroying the habitat of the good bacteria. So it becomes a loop. One is feeding against the other, and the other is intensifying the feeling. So, in order to get undepressed, I
Mhm.
would say we have to change our diet. And since we have 80% of our healthcare dollars spent on chronic disease, I would suggest that we start listening to people who have been doing this for decades. I would stop eating all raw foods except some salad. I would make sure my vegetables are sauteed. I would make sure that I'm getting enough protein every day that is digested by our gut microbes, that we have enough building tools to help us, rebuild that microbiome in our gut, because only a disturbed microbiome can produce this level of disease. And once that is settled, I tell people, listen, you have to exercise, the diet, the precision probiotics, which I'll get into a specific regimen, and start meditating. Change your view of life. Be thankful for things. Get together with your friends. I was reading an article that I wanted to share with you. They say a recession of friends is also the cause of anxiety and depression. Watching a lot of violence on your electronic devices continually sets a very negative brain pattern and makes people unhappy. What I call unfulfilling relationships, where people feel empty all the time, creates this depression. And believe it or not, your state of mind will trigger the production of chemicals in your body that will re-intensify that feeling, and you won't be able to fix it. So we have to stop thinking about a symptomatic cure. Stop getting products that tell you they're going to get rid of your depression. That's not the key. The key is producing a holistic, beneficial microbiome. In other words, those 100 trillion microbes have to work in unison with 100 million neurons lining your gut. Once that communication and cooperation is set, you're on your way to becoming better. And it really depends on you. Taking pills to control the symptoms is not a long-term solution. You're going to be stuck doing that for a long time. And I've been doing this for more than 50 years. I've seen and heard everything. And I am deeply concerned, especially about the young people who are suffering from depression and anxiety. And we have to do something about this. We have to come up with real solutions about loving our life, loving our bodies, and learning what is the truth about really fixing the ecosystem in the 27 feet of the digestive tract, and stop buying products that promise you symptomatic relief.
Mhm. Excellent, excellent. I love what you said. Even yesterday, you touched on how we need to look at the body as a whole, with the mental, the physical, the emotional,
Mhm.
all the different components. And I know the emotions can get sort of stuck in our bodies, which is why releasing out and changing the microbiome, just like you suggested and you
Mhm.
said, was imperative. um, so do you have any other thoughts about how we can balance it? How do we
Right.
balance everything? And before you say that, I just want to, before you answer that, let everybody know, please send us some messages, type in some messages if you have questions. If you have any topics, we've got the topics we have for this week. Today is the gut brain axis regarding depression and anxiety. Tomorrow, Wednesday, the topic will be digestive issues, major dysfunction in the GI tract. This is a really big one. Thursday will be indigestion and why the stomach acid is indispensable for health. And Friday will be chronic stress. And if you have any other topics that you would like for us to share information, please type it in the message um, box. And then we'll love to be able to address that. So moving forward here, so how do we balance it, Natasha? I know
Well,
you
first of
said
all, yeah, let me talk about diet, and let me tell you how important diet is, and
yes.
getting rid of these processed foods and sugar-laden foods. I've talked about the Hostess Twinkie defense, and that's a famous case in 1979 when Dan White,
Oh,
policeman and fire worker, uh, used the defense of instability and depression due to the fact that he went off of his healthy diet and exercise and started consuming junk food in large amounts. So some clever journalists that called it the Hostess Twinkie defense. And so I don't want to bore you with the details. The unfortunate thing is that two people were killed, Mara Moscone and Harvey Milk, which there was a movie made about this. The problem is that this was proven to show that the continual consumption of foods that alter the microbiome cause a violent behavior episode where you have explosion and lose control of your emotions and you resort to violence. This has happened multiple times. We see juvenile delinquents, and when we study their diets, they're usually filled with Coca-Cola, sugary bars with chocolate and garbage in it. Then they have another fix of coffee with more sugar. Then they have a fix of maybe a hamburger that has no nutrition with a white bun. And then in the afternoon, they have more fixes with another sugary drink. And then by the time, they reach before 5 o'clock, they literally have to lock up these juvenile delinquents in cells because they're so violent. They start attacking each other and breaking things. And we were able to prove by changing the diet, just changing the diet, brought down the violent rate by 70%. And so we have to think about these negative emotions because, believe it or not, the bacteria have to work in cooperation with you. You have to be able to know that there are consequences for not treating your body correctly. And unfortunately, especially in North America, the advertisers and the purveyors of the foods have, how shall I say, appealed to our lowest level of consciousness to eat the stuff that gives you momentary pleasure, but then eggs you on to have more and more. And if we want to get rid of depression, that's the first place we have to look at is the diet.
And even the many foods, even though they say natural flavors and things like that, there's marketing that is very deceiving sometimes. So we really need to read these labels
Yeah.
well.
And not only that, and I've told people, listen, this is science, not my opinion. It takes really 2 weeks to change your dietary palate taste. In other words, when you start changing, it becomes difficult because, believe me, there's ample studies that show people getting off of a sugary-laden diet is like with addiction withdrawal. You literally go through like withdrawal.
Definitely. And the sugars really destroy the immune system and the stomach, digestive system.
Well, that's true because, remember I said everything works in cooperation. So if
Yes.
we have the 100 trillion microbes, okay, and that community is upset and we got a lot of bad characters now producing chemicals that are adding to our depression, our mood swings, our, what I call disruptive behavior. It's even been linked to autism. It's not the only cause of autism, but is one of the primary causes of autism. When you have these sugary foods on a constant basis and you withdraw and you don't replace adequately the right precision probiotics in your gut, it's going to be much harder because you need to be adding good players to the bad players so that the bad players can get displaced because 40% of your dry weight fecal matter is microbes. So yes, you shed microbes every day and you allow microbes to enter your body through your mouth. Now, the other problem is, and again, remember the cooperation I talked about? Don't look for one solution. People who are taking antacids or don't have sufficient acid in their stomach, there's new evidence showing that using proton pump inhibitors for longer than 2 weeks duration can add to dementia in an older age and can have, lead to mental cognitive processing.
And definitely. And we're going to get into more detail about that on Thursday when we talk about indigestion and why the stomach acid is so important.
Right.
And I have a personal story about my father regarding that with taking the Natron precision probiotics. So
yeah, no, and the reason I'm bringing all this in, you're going to see overlapping again.
yes.
I'm going to be stressing this until you get tired of hearing it. You cannot, you
The more
cannot,
we hear it, the more it gets,
yeah, yeah.
ingrained.
Your body needs to work in cooperation. It's not about identifying one system. Look, you have the 100 trillion microbes lining the 27 feet of your GI tract. You have 100 million neurons, and you have about 80% of your immune cells right along in that intestinal wall. And there has to be a harmony and communication and cooperation for you to function as a happy, healthy person. And trying to treat one system without acknowledging the other is what's led us down to this chronic disease state.
That's right.
Because,
When one thing is out of balance, it kind of makes everything out of balance. And
right,
that's why you even, suggested even meditation and calming everything down. It all plays a part of our entire system.
yeah,
So
the perception of reality is the number one cause of illness. And then it also upsets the microbiota. So it's not that easy to change your perception of reality, but it is easier to start working on your digestive tract. And the problem has been that I've been in this field, like I said, for more than 50 years. I'm the author of 2 probiotic labeling standards. And the thing is that the probiotics can be miraculous or they can be a problem. So here's what I've learned in 50 years. You have to produce the bacteria that have evolved with us, that work with us, and create that cooperation that we need. Those bacteria have to be grown according to what they need in order to profit you. If they're not handled appropriately, they're going to be weak, stressed, and really unwilling to settle in your GI tract. And number 4, and most importantly, if they are able to settle in your GI tract, they have to be healthy and wanting to stay there. This is what people don't understand. They throw in these bacteria with people who have no knowledge of how smart bacteria are and why you have to choose only safe and effective genus and species. You don't have to remember all these classifications. You need to know who the formulator of the product is. You need to know how you're going to improve that system so that you start healing from anxiety. Because remember, anxiety takes all the blood flow to the extremities because you're running. You're trying to save your life. That's what anxiety produces in the body.
it's
So,
the fight or flight.
correct. So if all your blood is going to the extremities, where's the blood to drive your digestion and to help settle your microbiome? There's nothing left. So after that, constant stress, your microbiome is depleted. You can't rebuild your cells. And when you can't rebuild your cells, which we lose, I think I said yesterday, 10 million cells a minute, and you can't reproduce your body effectively every year, that's what leads to disease. This is what nobody's talking about. This
That's
is, and in the proper breakdown of these nutrients and the proper production of these neurotransmitters is what keeps us healthy and happy. It's as easy as that. You buy a product that looks sexy on the shelf, or it's got the pretty packaging that appeals to millennials or the X generation. Forget about the packaging. Figure out who knows what the heck they're selling you. They're selling you an intelligent entity that will not work unless you incentivize it to work. It's as easy as that. And that's their payday. If you incentivize them to do what they need to do, you're going to get better. If you don't have the proper bacteria reintroduced into your gut, it's not going to help you get better. And please, I want everybody to know Natasha's number 1 rule: everything has to work in cooperation. Please stop thinking about easy fixes, even though I have had millions of people tell me how my products have really saved their lives. I'm grateful. But I'm here to tell you, we have to start looking at the body as a whole. And the first thing we need to fix is our perception of reality. Next thing we have to fix is to make sure we have the right microbiome composition. Second of all, that we're eating the right food and that we're not, eating junk, because that ends up feeding yeast and bad bacteria. And that number 3, we're eliminating the toxins effectively out of our body, because the toxins can trigger the turning on and off of genes, which are another problem we can discuss in a much later podcast. But what I'm trying to tell you is that stop looking for simple answers to a very complex problem. Listen to people who have been doing this for a long time and have the legacy and the bandwidth to prove it. So if you want to keep doing the same thing you've all done before, you're going to get the same thing you
Get
always
more of
got.
the same thing you always got.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Well, I want to remind everybody that we are going live uh, every day this week, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Facebook. Tomorrow, the topic will be digestive issues, major dysfunction in the GI tract. This is another big one. Indigestion will be Thursday, why the stomach acid is indispensable for health, and chronic stress, which is why our immune systems are under siege. That's for Friday. And go ahead and type in any message you might have. Um,
Yeah, well, people are contacting me after the show, which is fine. And so this is for Vicky because she said, please tell me what I need to take. Well, we have something called the Healthy Start System that comes in a dairy-free powder or dairy-free powdered capsules. You need to take at least half a teaspoon to 1 teaspoon of each powder, which are 3 powders, 3 times a day in filtered, unchilled water, and take at least one Healthy Trinity twice a day to get your body back in shape. Get a free copy of my low carb diet, get my free copy of your exercise program. And very soon, I'm going to recommend some brief meditations that I find helpful. You're free to choose your own. Change your thinking, change your life, change your perception, stop buying wasteful and useless products, and get yourself back into a healthy, sane living pattern.
That's wonderful. You are like a wealth of information. You realize, everybody, she has no prompters, television prompters, or
No.
notes. This is all flowing through her, years and years and years of information, and her continuing of education of information. And you're you're just amazing with everything that you have to share, and we're so grateful to be able to get this out uh, to the world. This information is so necessary and so important, and we thank you so much. And we will look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Is there any last things you'd like to share, Natasha, today
Yeah.
regarding?
Yeah. I'm going to say, I'm going to quote you, let's build a better world by making all of us healthy. And then we can start building a better world by loving each other, reconnect with people, love your body, stop listening to 5 minute, shots of free advice that don't make any sense, and see if your life doesn't change.
That's really good advice. And okay, well, thank you so much. It's been an honor to be here with you today, and thank you, everybody, for joining. We'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Bye bye now.